Okay, so I was looking at this whole thing with the federal grant freeze that's happening,
Yeah.
and I gotta say, initially, like my eyes kind of glazed over. I was like, "Oh, government budgets,
Right.
who really cares?"
Yeah.
But then
Yeah.
I started reading these articles you sent me,
Yeah.
and I was like, "Whoa, this is a much bigger deal than I thought."
It is.
It's kind of like,
Yeah.
I don't know, like pulling a thread on a sweater,
I
and suddenly, like the whole thing
Uh-huh.
unravels.
It is, yeah. And it's not
Mm.
just like abstract numbers in a budget. We're
Yeah.
talking about
Yeah,
real consequences
real people.
for real people.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So
Big deal.
yeah, so let's sort of break this down. I mean, the
Okay.
basics are like
Yeah.
there's a freeze on federal grants, loans, financial assistance, all that, as of January 28th, 2025.
Yeah. As of right now. Right now.
Right now.
As we're talking.
Right, this is happening,
Yeah.
but it's not just like typical grant money. It seems like it goes way deeper than that.
Way deeper. Yeah. We're talking loans, cooperative agreements, even foreign aid.
Wow.
Like pretty much every
Right.
facet of like how money flows from the federal government
Right.
is being like at least temporarily disrupted.
And they're saying that the reasoning behind it is to review the programs and make sure they align with their policy goals, which on the surface sounds,
Reasonable.
yeah, reasonable, but I feel like
Yeah, the devil's in the details.
there's something
There's
else
funny-
going on. Well, because they've been pretty vocal about wanting to
Yeah.
align spending with
Yeah.
like conservative values.
Uh-huh.
And there's been a lot of talk about,
Right.
targeting so-called woke initiatives,
Yeah. Yeah.
and programs related to diversity, equity, and inclusion.
Okay, so what does that look like in practice? Like,
Yes.
is there an example of something
Absolutely.
that might be on the talking block? One that comes to mind is this program called STEM Stars.
Okay.
And it's a program that provides grants to schools that are in underserved communities
Uh-huh.
to create like after-school STEM programs.
Okay.
And it's been incredibly successful
Yeah.
in closing the achievement gap in STEM fields.
That's awesome.
But it's been labeled as, woke by
Oh,
some critics because it really focuses on reaching minority students.
I see.
So you could see under this freeze,
Yeah.
a program like that
Losing its funding.
losing its funding, and that would be a huge setback for those communities.
Wow. That's a real gut punch. And you mentioned legal challenges as well.
Yeah.
This does feel very sudden and like maybe,
It does. It does. And that's why we're seeing immediate pushback.
yeah.
We've got Democratic state attorneys general already planning to sue,
Oh, wow.
arguing that this freeze exceeds the executive branch's authority
Okay.
and encroaches on Congress's power of the purse.
Right.
So there's serious concerns about legality and also about like what happens to the communities that rely on these funds.
So let's connect the dots here
Okay.
for our listeners and like
Yeah.
paint a picture of what this could look like
Right.
in their daily lives.
So imagine like a local community center that offers free meals
Yeah.
and job training for the unemployed.
Right.
They rely heavily on federal grants to keep their doors open.
Uh-huh.
Now imagine that funding suddenly disappears.
Yeah.
What happens to those families who depend on those services?
Right.
Or think about a rural hospital
Yeah.
that relies on federal loans
Mhm.
to upgrade its equipment.
Yeah.
Delays or cancellations due to the freeze
Yeah.
could mean that life-saving treatments are unavailable.
Oh, wow.
So,
Yeah, those are really powerful examples.
yeah.
And it's not just about like the people directly impacted by this
Yeah.
specific programs, right?
Exactly. There's like ripple effects.
Yeah.
So if a school loses funding for its after-school program, working parents might have to scramble for childcare,
Yeah.
which impacts their jobs, their productivity.
That too.
If a nonprofit serving the homeless has to scale back its services,
Yeah.
we could see a rise in homelessness and all the challenges that come with that.
Right, right.
So the potential for disruption is huge.
This feels like a pretty major
It
political power play.
is.
Some people might see this as a necessary correction.
Right.
Other people might see this as a dangerous precedent.
Yeah.
So how do we make sense of these contrasting views?
Well, I think it's important to understand the broader context here.
Okay.
This freeze is part of a larger trend of the Trump administration,
Yeah.
seeking to exert more control over federal spending
Yeah.
and shift priorities.
Right.
It reflects a particular ideological perspective on the role of government
Yeah.
and its responsibility towards social programs.
And we want to stay neutral here, right? We're not here to endorse any one view. We just want to equip the listeners with the information they need
Exactly.
to come to their own conclusion.
To make up their own minds.
Yeah.
Yeah, our goal is to help you navigate this complex issue,
Right.
understand the potential consequences, both intended and unintended.
Okay, so to recap,
Yeah.
we have a surprising and sweeping freeze on federal funds,
Yeah.
potentially motivated by a desire to shift spending priorities, align them with a particular set of values.
Right.
This move is already facing legal challenges.
Absolutely.
And it's generating a lot of uncertainty
Yeah,
for organizations and individuals that rely on those funds.
absolutely. So as you're thinking about this situation,
Yeah.
consider this.
Okay.
If the stated goal is to cut wasteful spending,
Right.
are there alternative approaches
Mhm.
that could achieve that without disrupting essential services?
Right.
Is this freeze an effective and ethical way to achieve those aims?
Really interesting questions to consider. Well, this deep dive has definitely raised some important questions
Yeah.
about the role of government funding in shaping society
Absolutely.
and addressing our collective needs.
It really has.
Thanks for joining us for this deep dive.
It's been a pleasure.
Really appreciate it.
Likewise. Thank you.